Hey adventurers, so today's going to be another book review. This is going to be for Dawnshard by Brandon Sanderson. This is a epic fantasy novella set within the world of the Stormlight Archive. And that's really all that I have to say about this until I get into it. So Dawnshard by Brandon Sanderson is a Stormlight Archive novella set between the events of Oathbringer and Rhythm of War, which is books 3 and 4. And this tells the story of an expedition to discover what happened to a recently discovered ghost ship that had been attempting to reach an island, which used to have trade that was going on and stuff like that, and now basically all communication has dried up, and so they're trying to figure out what's going on there. The crew of the ship then have to go and try to unravel the mystery here. It is designed to fill in some of the gaps between books 3 and 4 and to give us some explanation of as to what has happened to the characters and why the characters are in these new places that they are in book 4 that seem to, with there being about a year time jump between book 3 and book 4, you really need some explanation of what happened and how things progress a little bit. Yeah, so that's about what I have to start off with. Before I continue on here, though, I just quickly like to say welcome to an Erudite Adventure. I'm T. If you're liking what you're seeing from us, please like, comment, and subscribe, and we will continue right on into this review now. So Dawnshard is not needed within the main plot of the Stormlight Archive, which is why it's written as a novella that's independent from the book. And so you don't need this to exist, especially since it is about 3 months after the events, I think, of Oathbringer, which puts it another approximately 7 months before the beginning of Rhythm of War, stuff like that. So it's not necessary to the main storyline that's being told in the Stormlight Archive main books, which is why it's a novella. But it does help to explain a bit of what happened during that time and to fill in some of the gaps and to answer some of the questions that undoubtedly we would have, and we did have. And I know that because I read Rhythm of War originally before I had read Dawnshard, and so upon my reread of Stormlight Archive, I went back and listened to Dawnshard so that I could fit it in there. And so it really does help fill in some of the gaps and answer some of the questions that you have in Rhythm of War, and just helps to answer how some of our characters have advanced as much as they have. This book is a bit more important for the Cosmere as a whole than it is specifically for the Stormlight Archive, because it introduces and begins to explain some concepts that will apparently become more important to the future of the Cosmere, which is Dawnshards, and what that means and how that affects things. And so it's obvious that it's going to be important somehow, and it's an important novella to include in the series for Brandon to have written at some point. It is a much more palatable novella than Edge Dancer was, which Edge Dancer is about Lift, who is an edge dancer, and Lift is pretty notoriously annoying in the series. Some people love her, some people hate her. I don't hate her, but she is not my favorite character, and I don't care to read. I prefer her in other people's chapters and chapters from other characters' point of views than in her own point of view chapters. I don't care for her POV chapters. And so this is a more palatable novella because it's mostly due to the fact that it's not following Lift, but it also does feel like a more important story that needed to be told than Edge Dancer was. But then we are also following Lopin in this book, who really, realistically, he can be just as bad as Lift at times, and so that is we're not only following Lopin, we're following Lopin and Risen and a couple other characters that are important to the story, but mostly it ends up being Lopin, and he really absolutely also can be annoying like Lift can. So it's not just Lopin, it's also Risen, who has, and I do feel like Risen is an actually interesting character, and one that in the interlude chapters that she had during the various books of the Stormlight Archive, I actually do appreciate and do enjoy reading about and learning about Risen's story. I don't really have a ton to say, or at least I don't remember all of the thoughts that I had at the time of reading this novella, so I don't remember them now as to what it was that I was what I wanted to say about it completely, but I do remember some things about it. I do remember appreciating that we were getting a bit more information on what was happening with the science and the magic tech at the moment in the world. I believe, if I remember correctly, this book starts out with Risen visiting Navani and getting permission to go on this expedition, or getting tasked with going on this expedition, or whatever might be the case with that. And so on that front, it was we obviously get to see a little bit more about the magic tech, and Risen's storyline includes a little bit of that as well, and so that's good to see. We also start learning about Dawnshards, which is nice, and what that means. And then we also start learning about how Chiri Chiri fits into everything, really. This sort of flying shrimp, I don't know, flying crustacean type creature that is kind of draconic in some aspects, but it's realistically it's a winged crustacean, and so it's nice to see how Chiri Chiri fits in, because even though Chiri Chiri is a winged crustacean, it doesn't feel the same as the rest of the creatures in the Stormlight Archive, the trolls or the chasm fiends or anything like that. It feels distinctly different from all those other creatures in its own way, and so it's good to learn about basically why that is. But mostly, I appreciated, even as annoying as he can be at times, I appreciated Lopin's arc here in this book. He actually grows and becomes a less annoying character, or starts on that journey, to be fair. He doesn't just become that, he starts on that journey. He actually grows and becomes a less annoying character. He discovers his flaws and begins to address them, and realizes that he has to be better. He can't stay the same person as he was. He needs to change. And that's really what was most memorable about this novella for me. I did very little reading back on what this book was about. I remember it well enough, and all I did was I read the synopsis on the back of the book. I went, yeah, and that's really all that I read about it, and so it didn't give me a whole lot to remember. But what I do specifically remember was seeing Lopin's character and thinking, okay, I appreciate how Sanderson is telling this character's arc, because it's very needed, it's very necessary, and I'm so glad. And it does explain why Lopin is less annoying in book 4. Overall, I don't think that this is anything brilliant, but it's decent enough, and I'm glad to have read it for the sake of the series as a whole and for the Cosmere as a whole. But it's not something that I'd say needs to be read unless you are super invested in the Cosmere. It's good enough, and it's better than Edge Dancer, but I don't think it's some brilliant piece of literature or anything like that. So that's really my thoughts on Dawnshard by Brandon Sanderson. Thank you guys for watching an Erudite adventure. We are posting videos every Monday and Thursday, and we have our social medias linked in the description down below. We'll see you guys again soon. Stay warm.